let's talk about paper, because in all this time that I've been doing videos for you guys, I have not shared what kind of paper that I use. You've probably seen it in other videos, but I want to talk about it specifically today. There are really a couple of different types of paper. There are sketch papers, there are drawing papers, and then there are the really high quality papers that you're going to use for finished projects. I typically use the sketch paper, and let's take a look at it and so I can show you the details. This is the brand that I've gone to for at least the last 10 years. There are some other brands that are popular in the US, but for some reason I've gravitated towards this one. Partially because they offer recycled sketch paper, and they used to offer recycled windmill powered paper. And I know that I'm using so much paper that I want to do my part to help the environment, so I'm going to go for one that's a recycled or produced with windmill power so that I can reduce my environmental footprint. This is the Strathmore Sketch 400 series. They have a 300 series, a 400, a 500, and they're all going to give you different qualities. I tend to go for this 400. It's not the best. You have the 500 series that's a little bit better, but it's good enough that I can use it in my everyday studio work. So the three things you want to consider in a paper are whether or not it's acid-free. You always want to use acid-free paper because the acid is going to damage the paper over time, so that if you make a drawing that you really like and then 10 years from now you look at it again, that paper is going to start to get brittle and yellow, and so that's because of the acid. So you're always looking for acid-free when you're looking for artist stock paper. The next thing that I think about is the thickness, and this is why I go for the sketch paper in the 400 series versus the 500 series or the drawing paper. Their drawing paper is a lot thicker. You can see the thickness measurement in pounds, or I think that's grams. I'm American, so you guys are going to have to correct me in Europe because I don't know the metric system very well. The way that paper is measured in the thickness is it's measured with what would the weight of 500 or 1,000 pieces of paper stacked together, what would that weigh? And this is 60 pounds. So the higher amount of weight it is, the thicker the paper. And your sketch paper is a little bit thinner than, here, I'll take one that's pulled out. It's a little bit thinner than the drawing paper. And so you're going to see some different problems that come up with that thinness. But because of the fact that I'm using so much paper, I go for the thinner paper because it's more environmentally sensitive. And most of the time I'm drawing things that I've drawn a million times over, like blind contours, or here's a scribbled line gesture, goofy things that I draw with my kids students, anime stuff, or like here's a Halloween haunted house. So I don't need good paper for that. I can still even produce a good drawing with it. So like this was a portrait that I was working on with a 10-year-old. This is my version of the drawing, not the 10-year-old's. And it's still a high enough quality paper that I'm not getting a lot of denting in it. I'm not getting a lot of puffed, ridged surface because I've put so much pressure on it. I can also use it for colored pencil. So this is Prismacolor and then graphite. And then I can use it for just basic exercises like my value scale. So the thickness is good enough for me. If I'm going to do a project that I really care about, I'm going to switch to a fine quality cotton paper, and I've got a video on that too for you guys to check out. So the last thing you want to think about is the tooth or the texture of the paper. And that is really like, here, let me grab a pencil so I can point to it. That's really where you're going to see the high spots and the low spots of the paper. So that sort of speckly nature that you can see in here, that's showing you where the paper has raised up and lowered down and raised up and lowered down. And that's going to give you the main character of your paper as you're drawing. So like here, I really like that sort of speckly nature because I was drawing this slate tile that the puff pastry was sitting on, and it really kind of lends itself to that. I think it works fine when I'm drawing a portrait as well. Here, let's move this out of the way so you can actually see it without anything showing through. And so I actually really like this tooth of the paper. it's quite speckly in nature when I'm using a softer pencil, but I like that grain and I like seeing that it's a handmade drawing. So if you prefer a smoother paper, you might want to go with something like a Bristol that's going to give you no texture at all. Or like a hot press watercolor paper might be smoother than this. But I think, just pick what you like and stick with it. Try things out, experiment, and see what you like that's different. So that is the paper that I use every day in my studio and have been using it for, like I said, more than a decade. And I hope that gives you a little bit more information about what to look for in your sketch paper as you're practicing at home.